What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another just side video here. Another track talk with special guest Ryan Hunter Sims, discus thrower at University of Oregon, now a Division III coach at Pacific University. We talked about everything from recruiting to standing out to finding somewhere you want to be, the environment you want to be in. And it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot, and he was able to talk a lot. We talked a lot about my experiences, his experiences from a coach, from an athlete's perspective. Something to for sure listen to. I appreciate all the support so far. Michael Norman video, doing good. We'll have some special guests on. Comment below who else you guys want to hear, what other topics you want to hear about. I love hearing from you guys, doing things you guys want to do. This is all about you guys and creating content for you guys. So I appreciate it so far. Stream live on Twitch Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays with guests. Playing some Fall Guys now, playing Warzone. Come on over, hang out with us, hit that follow button. The link is below. Discord links below. We're having a great community there. And like I said, comment, like, subscribe, YouTube. We're trying to grow a little bit, trying to add to it a little bit. So appreciate all the support. Now to the video with Ryan Hunter Sims. We talk about recruiting in Division I versus Division III in collegiate track and field. Thanks. All right, guys. We have Ryan Hunter Sims. Like I kind of introduced, talked a little bit about him before I muted and called him. I'll let him kind of introduce himself again, just kind of give you the summary of his time in Oregon as well as what he does now, and let him kind of take it away. So thanks for coming on, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Ryan Hunter Sims. I'm originally from San Bernardino, California. It's like a couple hours away or an hour away from LA area. Then I went to Eugene to compete at Oregon, University of Oregon, and spent 5 years there. And then after my 5 years, I went ahead and went back home for 3 months, and then now I'm coaching Division III track and field at Pacific University, and that's up in Forest Grove, Oregon, which is maybe about 40 minutes away from Portland.
Yeah, just like out in kind of the sticks of Portland, you know.
Yeah, out in the sticks, in between the coast and in downtown Portland.
Nice. Could you talk a little bit about your credentials as an athlete at Oregon, kind of what you kind of did there as well?
Yeah. I was there for 5 years. Was okay my first year. It was kind of a rough adjustment period, moving from the heavier implements. High school's 1.6 kilos for the discus, and then in college it's about 2 kilos, which is like four. College discus is 4.4 pounds. So that was a little bit of a rough adjustment period, but then we spent another 2 years adjusting, and then finally found my strides as a discus thrower, and ended up throwing 194 at Penn Relays, which is probably honestly the best atmosphere for track besides Hayward Field. And then I won that same year, my last year in 2017. I won the Pac-12 championship for the discus on my last throw of the day for the whole competition. So it was pretty exciting. And then we went on to nationals. Didn't do so hot. And then we went to USA's at Sac State, and then I think it was 12th in the nation that year. So it was a good year. A lot of ups, some downs, but really good year, and it was a great way to cap off my my discus career.
Nice. So you were recruited, obviously out of high school by Oregon, or did you walk on? What was kind of your recruiting process to get onto Oregon? Talking with the coaches, kind of take us through a little bit of your recruiting process.
It was kind of crazy. So I was at the time, I think it was beginning of the year, maybe September-ish time. I was getting recruited for football, actually, to go to Air Force and San Diego State. And then around October, I had an interest from University of Minnesota to do track there. Um, and I was like, "Oh, that's way too cold for me. I don't feel like dealing with the snow for,
LA
90%
to
of the year."
Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I would have probably cried a couple probably every day, but and then finally as I was trying to decide, my mom one day we were just talking in the morning and she was just like, you should just send an email to the throws coach. That was Coach Weir at the time, and just send him an email and tell him you're interested. And then I think when I got to school, I had like a like one of those free periods pretty much, and uh, I sent him an email, sent him all my information. Hey, my name's Ryan. I threw this, blah blah blah. Um, I'd really love to join Oregon. Oregon's my dream school, and I just sent it just off of a whim. And then I think probably like 20, 30 minutes later, I guess he was sitting at his computer, and he shoots me an email back super quick, and I was just kind of just shocked. And he's like, "Oh, you know what? I'll talk to the coaches here, and but we'll definitely most likely be able to come down to California and make it a in-home visit, and then we'll see where it goes from there." And I was just super shocked. And uh, then a couple months later, we're signing to Oregon. Uh, I think I signed in November. After I visited, I signed like probably 2 or 3 weeks, and then I ended up committing and signing to Oregon, and there it is.
Did you not want to play football for Oregon, or was that out of the question?
Uh, no. Honestly, football for me, it was getting old. It was just getting old, and I had a feeling I didn't really want to live that football life and just keep getting banged up anymore. I'd rather get my education by throwing in circles instead of getting my brain bashed in.
So when you were younger, were you pretty like split between the two, or was like football predominant younger, and then kind of
uh
as you got older, you realized like track and field was kind of what you wanted to kind of decide on and move forward with?
yeah, definitely football was. I mean, really started playing sports in general, like organized sports, freshman year of high school. um Football was always the one thing that I planned on, getting a scholarship for and getting out of San Bernardino with. um and it all track really started by my high school football coach literally dragging 4 or 5 of us out to the track, uh the first like 3 or 4 days after football practice, dragging us right to the track to find us somewhere to compete in and getting that, just being a dual sport athlete. I didn't want to do wrestling, so he was like, you have to do one more." And then we ended up doing track, and track was cool because it was just an individual sport. It was so different from being on a team, on that team environment and having to depend on others. Like track is just you, it's just like it's just you. Any mistake you make, you can't really blame it on, your teammates, the coaches. Like it's literally, when it comes down to it, 90, probably 95% of the time, it's definitely a you mental issue, pretty much.
Exactly. Um, so we'll kind of take it through to today now. So you coach at Division III Pacific University. What are some of like just I would have stood out there? What are some of like the blatant differences you see? What are maybe like your top three, four, five differences between Division I, Division III that are pros, cons? Maybe we can go into kind of each one of those. But what are kind of the things that you see as the biggest differences between a bigger school like Oregon and a smaller school like Pacific, as far as being an athlete, getting recruited, or even
Yeah.
as like a coach? What are just some of the things?
I think from a athlete perspective, I think it comes down to the pressure. I think, especially at like Oregon, you have so many teammates who are going to be future Olympians, or Olympians, and you just have the kind of legacy to kind of go off of. If you go to like a really top big school, it's always, like a really legacy type thing. That's kind of what a lot of the D1 programs are built on. Just getting getting at that high level, like winning nationals every year, and you're always just kind of expected to win nationals and go on and do XYZ. But I think it's really the pressure. I think from like a D1 to a D2 to a D3 is definitely the pressure, and I feel like D3 is just a lot less pressure. And I mean, granted, me as a coach, I definitely have put pressure on my athletes just because it's like sometimes D3 athletes they think they're less than a D2 or a D1 athlete, but in reality, especially with track is such a different just a different beast in general because you can go to a USA championship meet and you can have uh, you can have a guy from a Power Five, um, like a mid-level conference to and then you'll get like a D2 guy, a D3 guy. It's like you can have that range, and honestly, track just has so much range that it's just honestly what you put in, and I think that's what I'm me as a D3 coach. That's what I try to get my athletes to understand is like, hey, just because you don't have that quote unquote D1 title doesn't mean that you're not as good. And I think that's probably the con is that there's a big stigma around D1's the best, D2's okay, and then D3 you're just not you're low on the totem pole. The NAIAs. You're low on the totem pole. But in reality, it's like people just choose different routes. I mean, if we're being honest, like I could have stayed at home in California and went to Cal State San Bernardino, which is, I believe, now a D2 school. And you never know what could have happened from there. I maybe could have thrown further because I was more comfortable being back home. The first couple of years, where as in Oregon, like the first couple of years, I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't, like adjusting well, different weather. There's all certain different factors to it. But definitely that the stigma of being D1, D2, D3 is definitely a con for I mean everybody. Honestly, you get that pressure being a D1 athlete. You like you're a D1 athlete. Like everybody looks at you like, oh my god, you're a D1 athlete. Like in reality, it doesn't really matter. Especially in track, it's like yeah, the level sometimes may be different, but that's just some people get different exposure. I mean, for instance, my junior year, I took third for the discus in California, which is like California track is like the real deal. You
Trust
know
me,
what I
I
mean?
hear
It's
it
like,
every like once a week. I hear
yeah,
it from Ari that like
yeah.
no other high
Seriously
school
though,
track and field is the same. Like, oh, you
no,
always have divisions. Oh, trust me. I
every yeah, every
every
place
day,
has
every
its
day.
divisions. It's just like California. It's like if you're a state champion in California, like
You're
you are the
legit.
real
You're
deal.
legit. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like getting third as a junior for the discus. I only had uh, I only had two different scholarship chances as an athlete. Which looking back now, it's like that's crazy to think that
Yeah, it's kind of
I
crazy.
wasn't like I wasn't getting looked at more.
Do you think that is looking back on it and being honest with yourself and trying to enlighten other people, do you think that's partially on you for like you said not sending an email like you did to the Oregon coach and just kind of like maybe
Yeah.
filling out a questionnaire on like a couple cuz I feel um like I wasn't like a hot recruit at all. Like I was third my
Hmm.
junior year in Division 3 in Ohio. So I was like even farther down the totem pole. Um
Hmm.
but I was trying to bust my butt a little bit by like sending out all of those stupid questionnaires on all of their websites, and half the schools would like I would literally get it like bounced as like spam, or
Yep.
like I would never get a reply, but then like a quarter of them I would start getting a letter. But the other thing is like I felt like as I filled out more of those, like everything else waterfalled because somehow it's like when a school starts to talk to you, then like another school wants to talk to you, and it's like, okay, how did they
Yeah.
hear about it? But do you feel like that might be, looking back on it, being honest with yourself, do you think that is somewhat on you to maybe just like, if you were back in those shoes, kind of like do it a little
Yeah.
bit different?
I mean, I definitely would have done it different, and that's what nobody really tells you. I mean, you kind of
Exactly.
want to leave it up, like you kind of want to leave it to your coaches, but that's it's like
You
the
think your
recruiting
coaches and you
questionnaires.
think performances will get a
Yeah,
college
yeah,
coach to
yeah,
call
yeah.
you, and
Well,
that's not wrong.
no.
That's not the wrong thinking, but I've mentioned it before on stream, and I mentioned it last night. I had a Zoom call yesterday afternoon. I had a Zoom call with the high school kids, and
Hmm.
some kids asked me about it. And I said, first off, you need to find a school you're comfortable with, and that involves
Yeah,
more than just like talking to the coach and having them reach out to you. Like I reached out to Akron. Like Akron didn't reach out to me. Like my dad called Akron, and like they then
hmm,
the dialogue started. So I think like a lot of kids think like the recruiting process, no matter the level you're at and no matter the level of the school, if you're a right fit for the university and they think you're the right fit and you present yourself,
yeah,
like there's going to be a conversation, and then you go from there. Like they're not just going to be like, they're either going to be like no, or they're going to be like let's talk, and then you go from there.
hmm,
So I think you kind of got to put yourself
yeah.
out there even more than just what what your stopwatch or what the tape
What your
measure
numbers?
says.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what your
or
number
what you
says.
think your coach is going to do for you.
That's yeah. That was definitely the biggest thing I think would have changed. It was just putting myself out there, either filling out the recruiting questionnaires or just as simply as sending an email. You know, it's like the Oregon coach sent me an email 20 minutes. You know, like right away.
Exactly.
You know, it's like as long as you put in your email like your name, your event, and then like a time. A coach is gonna see that and be like, oh shoot, like how have I missed that kid? You know, it's like you like, and honestly, it's like it's a little better now with social media. You know, you can
Yeah.
kind of you can kind of get on Instagram and kind of promote yourself a lot more. But even then, you still want to directly get to know that coach. Like even if it's just like spamming them every like 3 or 4 months. You know, just like kind of just keep knocking on the door.
It's kind of like,
That's
do you remember the days when like high school kids, when YouTube was like kind of getting cool, when kids would make like mixtapes of their like highlight films of like football, their biggest
yeah,
hits, or like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
their like jukes, or like the
Hmm.
kids on the basketball court, like, but the problem was like then it became like overcrowded. And I feel like the same with social
Yeah.
media. It's like you can create a great brand with social media as a high school kid and separate yourself
Hmm.
just based on your branding as an athlete. Like a coach wants a good athlete. Like a coach wants somebody who's going to promote
Yeah.
their program and look good for them in the university, to boosters, to alumni. Like that makes a difference to coaches. Like I
Oh yeah.
like if you have a good kid, like I don't know about you, but I've helped a little bit with recruiting at Akron. Like I would take a kid that has a good branding social media as a distance kid that's maybe two
Yeah.
seconds slower than the in the mile than some kid that's like never has a social media page, or has like he posts like random off the wall stuff. Like that's not going to be a good representation of what the program is. So I think like social
Hmm.
media is like a very important tool, but it's very, very kind of like the mixtape thing was getting. It's kind of overcrowded, and there's a lot of kids, like every kid's
Yeah.
on social media. So you got to kind of separate yourself even more than just like putting yourself on social media. It's like you said, you got to send the emails, you got to fill out these questionnaires. You got to kind of separate yourself even more. Like on these questionnaires, like what would you look for an athlete to separate themselves before you would even go to say their social media page or their mile split times, or go look at more information? Like if a kid just emailed you, would you just literally, if the kid's marks were good enough, you'd go find them? Or if the kid was like worded his email well, like what kind of things do you look for as a coach now and think like, okay, this kid could be a fit, let me further research him or her?
For because of like D3 and the variability, it's just like once you see a kid email you, you kind of just hop on it quick because really like especially like for me, what I've always tried to do is like whenever I get an email from a prospective student athlete, I like hop on it because I know as like a high school kid, the one thing you want to do is like be seen, be known. So it's
Yeah.
like as soon as as soon as you respond to a kid, sometimes some of my kids that I have now, they were like you responded so quick, it's like it made me feel wanted, and I think that's,
Exactly.
not even just from a athlete perspective, just as a human, like a human bodily thing. It's just like you want to be wanted. That's really the biggest thing, is like you want to be wanted, you want to be seen. And it's just like just having that contact so quick, I think builds like a better connection. And it's just like you just kind of build a deeper, closer connection, and kind of easier too. If somebody were to contact you like 3 months down the line, like, oh hey, I just saw your email, most of the time it's like,
It's
you
long
didn't
gone.
just see it. It's like you didn't just see it, but it's just like now you're reaching out because you passed up on something on our you passed up on me for something quote unquote better. you know
Yep.
when it's just like you like once a coach, you'll never get to know a kid just off of their recruiting questionnaire. It's like you really gotta, for me, you gotta call them, or meet them on campus and let them kind of be their most authentic self with you. You got to kind of like break them down, ask them like random stupid questions that you wouldn't even think you would get. Like my favorite question is like, what's your favorite TV show? And then if they say The Office, then I'm in love. It's just like you just kind of get like a feel for what that person is about and what that person likes. And
Yeah.
then I guess my second question is like, how would your teammates describe you if you were out if you were out playing like sand volleyball or something? It's like, are you like competitive? Are you do you just stand there and just like don't do anything? Like, are you willing to like get in the mix? That's really the kids that I try to look out for and make sure, my like besides like the grades, and besides test score wise, just like the personality type kids. Like we have a lot of personality on our throw side. It's like it definitely shows. And it's like you still have, like even with kids uh who don't think they can throw far, they have that potential, and they just bring it out once you like bring out their personality. And track, honestly, it's like it's a big, you just track is big personality thing. It's like you have so many huge personalities that's like once they come out, then you just see a different side of people. You just see a huge different side of people, and that's probably the best thing to like look out for, that I do, is like look out for their personality, make sure uh they're not gonna be like negative Nancy's to the team. Like they're gonna bring that fun environment, to a practice.
Exactly. We got a couple of questions queued up here in chat, but I have one last thing to say on top, like on this topic of like relationship with like the coach. I think it goes back to the athlete too, because um, yeah, a coach's like track record or the coach's like philosophy of training or your like what you want to achieve, your marks coming out of high school could be great. But if you're not going to mesh well with the coach, with the team, with the campus, with like the academic
Yeah,
side of
no,
it, like it doesn't
it's
matter
already a
like how
fail.
good you are. Yeah. And so some kid
There,
yesterday asked me, he said like, did you ever think about transferring? And I was like, no, I didn't. I actually talked to somebody else about it, about how if Akron cut cross country, I would have transferred probably
hmm
while I was there. But the reason I didn't have to transfer is because I did all this work and I found somewhere that all of these
yep,
things of college, which is it's a whole nother level of just things going on in life that anybody will tell you, that even an athlete or not will tell you that college is just a whole nother experience. If all of those things, or not a majority of them, don't mesh well or you're not happy there, it doesn't matter how good the coach is, how good the facilities are, or like
hmm
how good you were out of high school. You're not going to reach your full potential. And I think that's extremely important, is a coach finding a person that fits their program as much as the athlete not making
yeah,
themselves fit in a program. Like don't go to
yeah. We
University of
had,
Oregon because you want
yeah,
to go there and make it work, and you mesh yourself to fit their profile. Like go somewhere
no,
that
yeah,
you fit the profile that's like natural for you to be, because you're just, no matter the level, you'll just get hurt or you'll fall behind, or you won't be happy. It's just never, you're not setting yourself up for success by any
No,
means.
no, not at all. And honestly, like my first or before I even got to college, they ended up firing the coach that I was going to work with, and they hired a new guy. And by this time I had already met, some of my future teammates and whatnot. And uh I was contemplating it, so like for like weeks. And then my brother kind of just sat down. He was like, "Listen, it's like there's no need to not go to your dream school. You love the school. They have what you're interested in. You met, or like you've already met people there. You enjoy the campus. It's just like really the only thing you're gonna have to do is get to know this new coach."
Mm-hmm.
And it like and that kind of sold me to where it was just like, it's like I was very comfortable on campus. It was like, I really wanted to be there. And then I did that. It took me and the new coach a little bit of time to kind of have have a legit communication. It honestly took a year or two, just because I was stubborn in the fact that like I wanted it a certain way, but I was really never expressing myself. I never really expressed myself, of like my needs and how throwing fit me, and it was just kind of like just a one way street. But once I finally opened up and I use my voice to like say, hey, this is what works for me. This is how I should be going about things. And then I had to take a step back and listen to him. And finally, we came to a happy median. And after that, things just started rolling. Like performances were just going super well. And my headspace was just a lot better. There's always times where you get frustrated at your coach, but it's at the same time, it's like you're always going to have that. You're always going to have that frustration, just because that's just like a human thing. It's like you're like if you always want it your way, but you can't like always have it, and it doesn't help when a certain part of track is not, or sports or education is not going your way. Then you're always going to have that certain type of frustration. But it's just like working through that and just communicating. That was like the biggest thing for me for 2.5 years, is just finding the right way to communicate with just a different personality, which I think has helped me now, as a coach, just trying to understand, my athletes a little more and realize kind of what they're going through, and what they would like, and just sitting down and talking to them as just like a real person, not having any like head authority, or trying to power over somebody. Because I think sometimes a lot of people just try to control, and that's not how a coach athlete relationship should be like. It should just be more of, just to understand, just understanding each other and trying to get where you guys are both on the same page. And once you get on the same page, then things start flourishing like super well.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Got a couple, I guess, kind of chat questions and a couple rapid fire for you questions here at the end. What's your favorite part of recruiting?
I think my favorite part of recruiting is finding those, like, how do you call it? Like finding those gems. You can get a kid
Yeah.
who's throwing, who's like not anywhere near the top. Maybe they've been to they're on the brink of going to a state meet, but they just missed a cut by just one track meet, and they've always missed it. And then those kids come to you, and then they work with you, and their performances don't quite match up with what they're doing now. It's like their previous performances, they should be blowing those out of the water. But then once you kind of get to know that person, get to know, like, kind of like crack the code, then then you can then it's just like that's probably my favorite part of recruiting is just finding gems and just cracking the code and being able to understand people and let them kind of just relax and just like throw far.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. I got a chat question, and I'm going to follow it up with a second question that's kind of personal from me. So someone asked, do you ever tell your athletes your max bench to fire them up in the weight room? And my follow-up question to that is, my college coach was a 357 miler when he was in college. So he always said, if when you ran faster than me, then you can actually like debate and I'll listen to like your like arguments about like random stuff in the world. I get it in track and field, but like just
Mm.
anything. So when I ran
Yeah,
faster, I
yeah.
was able to like talk to them. Do you have that with your athletes where it's like, yo, if you out bench me or out throw me or do this or like you can like have like dinner together or something? Do you have any kind of those things like on top of just trying to
Um,
fire athletes up with your own personal like benching or something like
I
that?
think yeah, I think I definitely try to. We always try to do like a standing broad jump, and I think the biggest thing for me is like me being the uh competitive person I am. I definitely try to mix in there and try to beat them as much as I can. But it's just like I definitely don't have a strong lifting background, so there's a couple of my kids who beat me in lifts, so I can't even really do that because then it would just be unfair. But I mean, definitely just use a little bit of it as like a motivating piece. Just saying like, hey, like I did this while like I threw this far while I was benching or squatting this amount of weight,
Yeah.
and then kind of open their eyes up and be like, oh shoot, let me try to get on that level and let me start throwing further. And uh, I think my kids like when I get in there and throw. I think that's kind of like they've kind of made me get in there and throw like the javelin. Lord knows my shoulders are too stiff for the javelin, but I do it sometimes and they just kind of coerce me into doing stupid things like that.
Two more questions for you. Well, actually, two more from the
Yeah.
chat. When did you realize you wanted to be a coach? Like, what made you want to be a coach?
Um, I think it was my fourth year in college, probably like beginning or end of my fourth year of college. Um, a lot of the time we were coaching each other, me and my teammates, and for some reason I was always the person that my teammates went to whenever they're frustrated with the coach because like it's just that bond. And probably it was probably about the end of that year. My coach came up to me and he was like, honestly, you will end up being a better coach than I will one day, and you should definitely consider it. And at that point, I was like, yeah, you're probably right. And then after college, as I was sitting back home, I was just kind of thinking about it. I was like, I should just first job should just be coaching, and then luckily there, my one of my teammates from Oregon, his dad was the head coach at Pacific, and I let my teammate Max know like, hey, if your dad needs somebody, then I'll be down to come back to Oregon and coach at Pacific. And he called me up, and next thing you know, I was getting on a or getting ready to drive up there and start coaching here.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on this a little bit through like the differences. But someone asked, we maybe simplify this with like one or a couple tips here from simple tips from us to kind of maybe for people to take away. What advice do you have for a rising senior that wants to compete at the Division 1 level?
Um, I mean, definitely put yourself out there. If there's schools that are academically fit for you, and you can. I bet you now because I know we're doing it. Every website is pretty much doing virtual tours. So if it's like something that's appealing to your eye, definitely send something out to the coach and, just put your name out there. And because I know sometimes, even if I think you mentioned it a little earlier, how like certain like other coaches will kind of get your name. And honestly, um, we do this all the time in our conference where it's like a kid say, because we don't have like a nursing program per se. If a kid is really wanting to do like nursing or uh, yeah, I can't remember the other major. If a kid really wants to do nursing, like they're a badass thrower and they want to do nursing, but they really want to get into a nursing program, then we'll contact like another coach and be like, hey, listen, there's this kid. I would love to have him. Seem like they would be a great fit for us. I don't know about you, and then pretty much just shoot over their contact info, and then so it's like your name will almost get passed around sometimes just because other coaches will know you will probably be a better fit there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like you said, I think you just have to like distinguish yourself more than just like a social media, like a normal social media brand. I think you have to create
Hmm.
an image and a brand because that's the new normal. Then I think, like you said, you have to
Yeah.
put in some effort. You have to find somewhere you want to be, um, because like, and I think like even my coach reiterated this very, very like strongly to me is you have to create a skill set and get a degree because like who knows what happens in
Yeah.
life, like you never know like what tomorrow
Anything could
brings in this
happen.
sport, and you're never going to get guaranteed like a professional contract. You're never going to be guaranteed money as a
Hmm.
professional. You're never going to be guaranteed your next year of scholarship. Even though you think you might be, there's so many loopholes that like colleges can
Yep.
pull. Like nothing's ever guaranteed in our sport at all. It's a very
No.
cutthroat like environment, very cutthroat sport, and I think you have to really distinguish yourself and find an environment for you that fits the best for you. And the other thing is that is you just have to keep performing well and running fast.
Hmm.
As much as we
Yeah.
say that like you have to have outside of the times and the marks, but like those speak drastically. Like if you're a good kid
For yeah.
and you got a brand like and you're not improving, then obviously that's a big like or like a not a big warning sign. But if you're improving drastically or your coach has good things to say about you or training's going well, like
Hmm.
um all everything like that. So I got a couple like random off the wall, super simple rapid fire questions I wanted to hear. Um, what is your coolest piece of gear you got as a University of Oregon athlete?
Um. Oh God.
Or what was like what I should say what was like the coolest perk or like what's something that like is off the wall that no one would ever think about you doing? Like what's kind of like what's like a big memory you have as being an athlete at Oregon?
Honestly, it was probably the time when we NCAA made it legal for them to start giving us food. That that honestly was the game changer for for like a lot of us. Because I mean, we had the whole brunch deal, so it's like we had a full buffet
Dude, the HDC, right?
at
Was that what it was
breakfast.
called?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dude, that thing
HCC.
was
The
legit.
HCC was the best because you'd wake up, do a lifting session at like 6:30, and then immediately shoot over to breakfast. You don't have to think about anything. You just say, hey, can I have this, and that, and boom, you're eating, and then you got to go right to class or take a nap. But
Dang.
that's probably the best perk besides all of the Nike gear that we got. Definitely the food. Thrower mentality.
There you go. I was gonna say that. Final question for you. What would you suggest the athlete, other than the pressure of maybe Division 1 versus Division 3, if an athlete's deciding between going to a bigger school or a smaller school, um, what do you think should be maybe their one or two things that they kind of consider strongly as far as like um, maybe they're like the last two simple things they should think about potentially but try to help make themselves like the decision between a big school or a small school.
I think one of the biggest things, probably honestly, this all goes wraps into one, but I think the one word I would say would be feel. Just a feel for if you're going to be able to survive there without doing sports. Um, that's really the biggest thing, and seeing a lot of like teammates who got injured or things just like family troubles and whatnot back home. I think being able to know that you are going to be in a safe environment, both physically and mentally, at whatever school of your choice. I think that's probably definitely the biggest thing. Um, and then also just having like a feel for your coach. If you have the decision to go to any division at all, it's just having the feel of the campus, of the vibe of the team, and then also the coach. And you kind of got to jab and ask a ton of questions to the coach, like just getting to know that person, because at the end of the day it's like they are a person, and it's like a lot of people just don't really realize that like your coach is just your coach. But honestly, if you can be able to create a fun like a fun, competitive, playful environment with your coach, and then that will trickle on, to your teammates as well. Then you'll be comfortable being at that school and being, away from home, even if it is like 20, 30 minutes away from home. Just pretty much all that pretty much goes into how you would feel being at that school if you didn't have track, or if you didn't have whatever sport you're actually going to do.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that anybody could disagree with that. So, well, I appreciate you like coming on. I appreciate this all, like you doing this, hanging out with us. I appreciate all the information, and I hope that some people will learn some things about like the differences, the recruiting process, and that you guys like your food at Oregon as throwers. So, no, I appreciate it, and I hope
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have a good night. And I appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Good talking to you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right. All right. Bye.
All right, guys. I thought that was good. I thought that was really cool to hear some of the differences, some of the things it was like to be recruited to Oregon, some of the things it was like to coach at a small school, some of the challenges he faces. But I think 100% reiterate that point that no matter the level that you're at, you need to find a school that you fit on and off the track and that you enjoy being at. 100%. You can't be successful if you're not at a school you enjoy being at. There is no ifs, ands, buts about that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate Ryan coming on. So I just actually confirmed that we are going to have a track talk tomorrow. We have a special guest by the name of Bryce Hopple coming on tomorrow. So that is confirmed for tomorrow. Bryce will be on tomorrow. Shooting for 7:45 again. 7:45 Eastern. So that will happen tomorrow. Shooting for that with Bryce. Don't know how long it'll be. Don't know if anything will change, but that's the goal there. That was spot on. D3 is a creative division at the top. Exactly. You can be successful at whatever level you're at. Big school, small school, mid-major, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, junior college. Track and field is one of those things where you don't have to have another teammate on the team that's good. You can push yourself. You can find the right coach, right environment to be successful in, no matter the level, no matter where you're at. Track and field is a special sport that doesn't matter. Yeah, at a small school in a team sport, you can be successful and you can have the stats, but again, everyone's gonna be like, well, you didn't play against good competition. Yeah, you put up 4 touchdowns as a wide receiver in Division 3, but you didn't have any good cornerbacks to play against. In track and field, yeah, you might be like a conference champ, but if you're a 358 miler, there's nobody can argue with that. It doesn't matter where you do it. 358 is 358. Scoring 20 touchdowns in a season is different depending on who you play against. So I think that's a really good point Danny It's important to choose what's best for you rather than what looks best. It's kind of like I said. I think you got to find an environment that you fit to, that you're not mending yourself to fit to. Like I would have loved. Like I was recruited by Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia Tech, Memphis, Kentucky. I said, Illinois, Purdue, like Big Ten schools, and that's my mom went to Purdue, my dad went to Ohio State. Weren't athletes, but Big Ten, like went there. I wanted to go big. Like that was what I set out to do. Even if I wasn't gonna be like playing sports, I wanted to go big. But after talking with the coaches, meeting with the guys on the team, yeah, the guys were cool. Coaches were okay. Obviously, like the gear you get was cool. Like, but I tried to look past that and like where I was gonna be successful. And like the guys at Akron were just there to like they were passionate about being there, and that's what I was looking for. And I think you got to find what works for you and what is best for you. Obviously, athletes have success at all different levels. So it's all based on you. It's all based on you, what your recruiting process looks like, what you want to achieve out of college, like he said, you got to find somewhere academically that fits. I was an engineer going into school. I ended up switching to finance. But I still was okay because Akron had a good business school. But Akron's engineering program was one of the top tier engineering programs in the Midwest. So there was a lot of things that fit for me. So chose a big one school because it looked the best, but in reality, probably would have done better in a different program. Glad I had a team that was supportive on and off the track. 100%. I think you're gonna find that. I can't speak for other event groups, but as a distance athlete, it's tough to find a bad team. So I think that shouldn't be your only determining factor. I think that should be like a big part of it. But I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the distance culture is very like on and off the track. Like we're cool. It's tough to find people who aren't. So I think that's a very crucial piece of it. But don't let that be your only piece. So, and you can compete with other divisions. I ran Division 2. Exactly. You can still compete. Exactly what he says. You could be the Division 3 champion and go to USA's 3 weeks later and whoop on all the D1 guys. David Ribich, Drew Windle, Division 2 champs, went to USA's. Drew Windle, world silver medalist out of Division 2. So, if you have teammates and a coach to support you, that can do a lot, 100%. I watched North Central College. Side note, almost go to North Central. Strongly recruited. Talked to him. Almost went on a visit. Was very, very interested in North Central. One of the biggest reasons I was interested in North Central is North Central was one of the first schools that put a lot of time and effort into recruiting me, just like Ryan said. In their culture, it's like UO. It's contagious there. Can't forget about Noah Draudry. Yeah, I mean, dude, the list goes on and on of like people who, went on and on about being pro that are from smaller schools. So, schools like North Central are doing it well. You can create a culture in distance running, especially distance running, no matter where you're at. Because I think about the resources you have to have for distance running: a track, some trails, maybe a little weight room, I guess. So, yep. So, yeah, my hitter's putting those back on.